Saunders-White, who has, in her short term in her short tenure as our Chancellor, has shown that she is going to be a friend, a supporter of the Alumni Association.
Well, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I brought my technologies with me because as I was preparing this morning to come, one of our alums sent me an email that I thought I'd share with you, and I didn't print it out, so I'm going down through to looking at my technology. Forgive me for that. But how are we doing this morning?
Great.
What I thought I would do, if I could, is to kind of walk you through where I've been for the last 6 weeks, give you my view of what Eagle Excellence really is, and then entertain some questions that you may have. Does that sound like a good format for us this morning? But before I get started, I know you acknowledged your president, but I have to tell you that I had no idea that she really lived in D.C. because she was here on campus so much. And I think that her dedication, her representation of you really gave me inspiration when I was thinking through the opportunity as Chancellor, really showed me the kind of commitment that this legacy of truth and service really meant. So Tanya, for your service, I am appreciative, and I will share every time I've called her or emailed her or asked her, she has always responded. And to Vice President Kearney here, who came down on a rainy day in June to bring me greetings and also to bring me my alumni pin. I appreciate your efforts. So let me just walk you through my last 6 weeks, if you will allow. Again, before I get started, I also want to acknowledge Judge Charles L. Beckton. You know, he led our institution for the last year, and I think it was truly a year of transition. As some of you may or may not know, Judge Beckton is still serving the UNC system as interim chancellor at Elizabeth State University. Elizabeth City, what did I say? Elizabeth State, sorry, Elizabeth City State University. On February 8th, I made a commitment that I wanted to embrace my new NCCU family, and I wanted to hit the ground running. And on February 28th, I sent a document to the campus, and I think it kind of rocked the heels of some, but I sent a document to the campus really outlining what I needed to know before I arrived. The document was fairly comprehensive. It touched all the functional units, and it asked some of the typical questions that you would want to know in terms of what the organization looked like, what were some of the goals, but it took another step. It talked about what I now call Eagle Excellence, but then it just called points of pride, and what we could do to become a first choice premier institution. So I asked the functional units to give me that information back. I asked for it back on tax day. I didn't really realize that I was doing that at the time, but on April 15th, I received about 2,000 pages of information. And I asked for it all electronically, and I'm really delighted to say that the campus responded in the way that you would want them to respond. So I spent the last month and a half, or after April, really digesting that information so that I could arrive on campus with a better perspective of what needed to be done and where we were indeed positioned to go. In addition to having this written material, you heard your president talk about the commission of a transition team. And what I did there is I went to all of our stakeholders, not just the alumni, but I went to the Durham community. I went to individuals on campus, but trying to represent all of the stakeholders that our institution would engage and ask them to participate in giving me a perspective, if you would, of, again, better information about the community, making sure that when I arrived on June 3rd, that I could indeed hit the ground running. This committee did extraordinary work. The objective was to assist the Board of Trustees in my introduction, to provide an avenue for the university and the community to reflect on the future of the university, and to plan and execute the activities of all the inauguration associated with the 11th Chancellor's arrival. So on June 3rd, I arrived on campus, and I began the journey of what I'm calling Eagle Excellence, or E Squared. Many of you who've read my background know that some people think I'm the technology lady, but in actuality, I majored in Southern history and taught mathematics after a while. Taught mathematics to 9th graders before I began my journey in higher education. But I've been tagged the technology lady, so I thought, and the STEM person, so I thought I'd reach back and grab a term. But Eagle Squared really does mean that excellence, you know, Aristotle says that excellence is something that we must practice. It doesn't just happen. We have to practice it every single day. So excellence in our classrooms, excellence in our engagement with students, and excellence in everything that we indeed touch. We are on this journey towards Eagle Excellence. We are going to be continuing to produce strong leaders in our community. We are going to produce what I call techno scholars, and that's in our 21st century. What we have to acknowledge is that we can't live and breathe without some level of technology. Our students cannot be successful. Doesn't matter if they're mathematicians, doesn't matter if they're educators, doesn't matter if they're judges. They will have to engage, and so we will be continuing to provide that type of experience for our students. Our 2020 strategic priorities are strong. Eagle Excellence embraces those priorities. Those priorities are built on these pillars: student success, public service, community engagement, internal communications, and the intellectual climate. Truly, the foundation that we must build, the expectation that we must have within our community, among our students, among our faculty and parents, is that we must graduate students in 4 years. That is not negotiable, okay? We must do it in 4 years. Remember when you were here. No one said, take your time, express yourselves, experience all the great. They said, get it done in 4 years, and that's all you had. And it didn't matter how life interfered with that process. It was still your responsibility as students. So we must continue, and we must go back to those values that were so real and part of the experience that you had on our campus, and encourage, insist, demand that our students look at this experience as a 4-year experience. And I can share with you, in the orientation sessions that I have been a part of, I have asked students to look at mom and dad and say to them, I will get it done in 4 years. I've asked mom and dad to look back at them and said, and that you will do. Now let me explain to you, you've heard a lot in the press of recent note about student loan rates, interest rates, doubling from 3.5 to 6.8. You can't get a Congress to resolve that. Okay? So 4 years is when we need this intellectual talent to engage us. But in addition to that, if we don't get them out in 4 years, their cost of an education does not feel like they're making an investment, but incurring debt. And that's how people like to talk about higher ed today. They like to talk about it as the debt associated with the experience. And people will tell you that student debt, parent debt for higher education is stronger or more pervasive than credit card debt. But the reality is this: if we focus on the prize, if we come and really embrace Eagle Excellence, we can get these students out in 4 years. You are working on that. You, by providing your scholarships, by providing the book scholarships, by being engaged with our students, you are part of that process. So that is a huge element within Eagle Excellence. And you know, people want to talk about the Chancellor, but I'd rather talk about the Chancellorship. And the Chancellorship really embodies the entire operation of the institution. Truly, you want somebody who has a vision, but you also want someone who can galvanize and bring a team together to implement. And so what I am on a mission, part of my Eagle Excellence, is to expand the notion of from just the Chancellor to the Chancellorship. I will share with you that I've talked to our Board of Trustees about that. Our board has to be an advocacy board. So at the first Board of Trustee meeting that occurred in June, I asked them, I issued a call to action. And I said, North Carolina is at its most pivotal point that it's been in a long time, in 136 years, did I get that number right? In terms of what we're doing in our General Assembly. We have reduced higher education spending and put it on the backs of our parents. We are embracing this notion that you can go to school if you can afford to go, and if you can't afford to go, that's not the state's obligation. When you came to NCCU, higher education was considered a public good. The words have changed. The words now are common good. But I believe that it's all of our responsibility as part of Eagle Excellence to go back to what we know works. And we know higher education is a public good, and we should not make any excuses for saying those words, even though they may not be politically correct. And so I asked our Board of Trustees to embrace this notion of public good, and I asked that they call each one of their legislators and have that conversation. And I'm delighted to share with you this morning they did. Because we are bracing for another $6.4 million budget reduction from our state legislators. And so we must engage. And so the Chancellor can't do that alone. So again, this call to action, I'm hopeful for the North Carolinians in the room. I'm hopeful we'll get a state budget this week. And we know a cut is coming, the deepest of which is $6.4 million. That's what the House is proposing. We're advocating moving closer to what the Senate has, which for us would mean about $1 million less in cuts. So that's what we're bracing for. So please, you stay tuned. And as we move towards fully engagement, we will be asking you, because believe it or not, those legislators will listen to the citizens that they were sent to Raleigh to support. So your calls, your letters, and your emails make a difference. Now, in addition to that call to action with the Board of Trustees, I also asked them to embrace our new Board of Governors structure. And for those of you who may not know, there is a 32-person board that governs the operation of the UNC system, which we are a part of. That board retired 17 members in June. I'm sorry, in May. In June. I'm getting my dates confused. In June. I wasn't here in May. But they retired 17 members. There is not one member on that 32-person board that understands historically black colleges and universities. And this is the governing body that will inform policy, make policy, approve policies that we as an institution must abide by. So I asked the board to reach out to the new members and the returning members of the Board of Governors. And we're putting a very intrusive, intentional program in place to help inform. We can look at this as a challenge or an opportunity. And I prefer to look at it as an opportunity. And so we're engaging our board in Eagle Excellence in that regard. Let me just tell you, I've had a wonderful 6-week journey. I will share that on my first day on June 3rd, Durham's Mayor Bill Bell presented me with the key. I spoke at the City Council meeting that night. I will also share with you that the mayor and I have already broken bread together and talked about ways in which we could enhance Ward 4, which is the ward in which we sit in the city, which is the most crime-ridden ward for the city of Durham. And when you look at our great institution sits in between two rival gang organizations. And so the mayor and I have already had conversation about what we can do so that we can continue to provide quality higher education and a safe environment for the students who choose to engage us. I will tell you that I had a wonderful start with students, both in person and virtually, hosting what some of you may be familiar with in terms of a Google Hangout and a Tweet Up. Now, and it was, if I can borrow the vernacular of my day, it was so cool. You can't say that today to students. They're like, cool, what's cool? But thank you. So I met with them virtually. We talked honestly about some of their needs and requirements for the institution. I will tell you that our student leadership had a retreat in Greensboro that I attended. And if you ever, one of the things that you know better than I, but we have some of the best looking students. And I know you guys, some of you sat on that rail and some of you know what I'm talking about. But when we were in Greensboro, we were taking a photograph. And there were people out by the pool. And they came by and they wanted to know who this good looking group of students were. And so I took much pride in sharing with them that is the leadership, student leadership for North Carolina Central University. And so they started taking pictures. So it was fun. I met with the Research Triangle leaders. I met with them on day 2. All of the folks that I hope have deep pocketbooks or wallets that will be able to support our institution. I've met with the Governor's Economic Development Chief Advisor. I've met with 18 members of the General Assembly on both sides of the aisles. And co-chairman Blackwell and I have already started. Co-chairman Blackwell is chair of the Education Committee, and he and I have already started a robust dialogue. I also share with you that I've met with the new Chancellor of UNC Chapel Hill, who is also the first woman in their history. She and I chatted her very first day, where, quite frankly, she reached out to me and said, there's lots of collaboration we need to do with our institution. So I'm really encouraged by that. There are other institutions in the area, Shaw, St. Augustine, and Bennett. I will tell you, I have met with their presidents already. And one of the things that I'm really excited about, and one of the things that have really has really been inspiring to me, as part of the transition effort, I talked about being a part of this community, being a fabric of what makes Durham work. And one of the things I know from my own upbringing is that faith is a part of that experience. So I have met many of you in church on Sunday as I'm visiting all of the area churches. So I am off to St. Mark's tomorrow, but I've been to Holy Cross. I have been to Emmanuel, St. Titus, First Calvary, White Rock, and I've got many, many more to go. And when I go, I have to tell you, fellow Eagles, I go as a sister in Christ. And so it's very heartwarming to see so many of you who've come out to take pictures with the community, and it's been a great joy for me. I've been hosted by many of the associations that I belong to, and I will tell you that yes, I did throw out the first pitch at the Durham Bull game against the Louisville Bats. And for those interested, it was a little to the left, but my goodness, I got it over the plate. So, let me just tell you a little bit about my philosophy of leadership. I told the search committee when I came that I wanted to be, or I was a servant leader. And that was the type of leader that I wanted to be for our great institution. So try to put my rhetoric into action. And let me share with you that on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, I have open office hours from 3 to 4. And anyone in the university community will have access to the Chancellor. It's been a fun experience for me. As you can imagine, you hear a bit of everything. But for me, I've asked that those that come help us define Eagle Excellence. I want the innovative ideas. I want the creativity that will make our institution first choice and premier. This is not a new idea on our campus. I borrowed it, that's a euphemistic way of saying I stole it, from Chancellor Chambers. Because I did review all the chancellorships, and that was one aspect of his leadership I thought could be revived for the good of Eagle Excellence in our institution. I will tell you that no chancellor in today's environment. I told you about the opportunities we have in the legislators in our challenge in the budget. I haven't been asleep at the wheel in terms of my fundraising. I will share that the Durham Chapter of the Links Incorporated presented me a check for $50,000. That the North Carolina Legislative Black Caucus and its foundation at its annual education scholarship presented the institution with a check for $10,000. AT&T heard my plea. We've got a handful of students who have a de minimis amount of a balance, and didn't plan that they would need to come up with another $5 or $6 or $100, and some balances are as low as 10. And students just aren't focused or have focused on that. I had what she thought was going to be a meet and greet meeting, and so AT&T gave us about $7,000 or $8,000 that day. She wrote the check so that we could help those students who are just who are in that peculiar situation where $100 may keep them out of school because they didn't plan for it. So I told her that was a gap filler, but I needed much more. I needed more zeros at the end of that gift. But I would take that $7,000 right now. I would also share with you that the institution has done an extraordinary job this year in our grants and giving, our sponsored research arena. You know, Washington had a 5% cut. Sequestration is real. But let me tell you that our researchers on this campus have done an extraordinary job, because we have raised about $20 million. And the last count I had was about $20,500,000 in sponsored programs. So I'm really delighted that we are moving in that direction. Now let me also give you a couple of updates. I know you're going to get them this afternoon, but our team will take the field here in about another 6 weeks, our football team. And the MEAC just informed us on Friday that we have 2 televised games on ESPN this year. So our South Carolina State game and a Bethune game will be televised, the details of which will be shared with you this afternoon. I also want to share with you that you're going to get an update this afternoon as to where we are in our admissions effort. No doubt, the Parent Plus loan that you've been reading about and hearing about on the airwaves is real, and it is affecting our students' ability to go to school. Our freshman class will probably be the smallest freshman class we have had. But, you know, I will tell you, that reality is true. But here's the other reality. They are the most capable students we have ever admitted. Now, the ink isn't dry on that yet, but I will tell you that we are attracting some of the best talent across the nation. So I'm very delighted on that front. And I also would like to share with you, sometimes, you know, you have to tell the story of what's going on here in a much more powerful way. And so I want to recognize Richard Smith for his effort. I want to share with you that he and his lovely wife Jackie had me out to dinner. We brainstormed and talked about lots of things when I was still in Washington. And one of the things he said to me, he says, I'm working on something. And so we brought to campus in June the opportunity to be a part of the U.S. Air magazine. How many of you use the U.S. Airlines? How many of us go through that pocket in the back and pull out the magazine? Do that in August. Do that in August, because your eagle pride will be felt on that airplane as US Air is doing a feature on historically black colleges and universities. And when you open that front page, you're going to see our founder, Dr. James E. Shepard, on the cover. And then you're going to see a beautiful ad that talks about who we are today and where we are going. And so, thank you to the Smith family for having brought that to us. And let me just share with you the power of that reach. That was a very modest investment that we made. And I kept asking, don't we need 2 pages? And they said, no, Chancellor, we could get away with 1. And at the end of the day, we got 2 pages. But that magazine has a circulation of 9.3 million folks. So I'm very delighted about that. Also, let me share with you that part of my outreach really has included the alumni. We really start that alumni outreach in August, thinking that everybody will have enjoyed their summer and be ready to start the year. We start kicking off my visits to the alumni community August 16th in Greensboro.
Yes.
I'm really excited about coming to Greensboro. I just heard from Trustee Barbie that there's a morning show that I guess he was able to secure. And so the Chancellor will be on the Greensboro Airways that morning prior to our activity. So I'm pretty excited about that. I'm sharing that with you because I'm giving you a challenge. We've got to get the we've got to let everyone across the nation know what is going on here at our great institution. And so I'm asking, as you start to put these activities together, that it's not about celebrating the new Chancellor, but it's about reminding and keeping in the forefront the wonderful works that go on here at our campus. Because we know the eagle is never fallen, So why don't I stop here? That gives you just a kind of a perspective of my thoughts and where I've been. I've had roller skates on, but I packed them early because that's what I wanted to do. I will be your servant leader. But we can't do it, I can't do it alone. I told you that there was an alum who sent me something this morning, and I hope I can pull it up pretty quickly. And how many of you know Sam Rhodes? Sam sent me this email, and so give me the patience, if you will, to kind of read it. He said, this email is addressed to everyone for whom I have an email address for. It is directed to the powers to be, individuals and organizations who can make a difference. That includes everyone that cares. Then he goes on and he tells the story about one of our sister institutions, St. Paul's College. He talks about the fact that the college actually closed on June 30th. And for all who love HBCUs, this tugs at our hearts. And he goes on and he talks about the fact that he hopes that this is not an introduction of what is to be. And he says, you know, the founder of St. Paul's, James Solomon Russell, brought the idea, the concept to Lawrenceville. But he said white folks put up the money, just reading what he says, because black people didn't have any to do so. He said they did so because they realized that the country could not survive without significant numbers of the populace lacking training to support themselves. Goes on to say that education cost. And he says the current situation is essentially the same as it was then. The problem is that many of the folks that be think that the task has been accomplished. It has not. I realize I'm preaching to the choir. It's imperative that we inform and inspire the powers that be to honor the founders and supporters of HBCUs by joining their alumni associations and supporting them financially to the best of their ability. He says, yes, St. Paul's College closed on 6/30, but St. Paul's College National Alumni Association is still open for business. Now, I will say to you, in my call to action to you, that we have many wonderful individuals who've come to us, who've graduated, who are a part of the Eagle family. You must embrace them all. You must get them back engaged. We have 18,000 alums who've never given a dime to this institution. Our state resources, Charlie Nelms talked about the new normal. Well, it's our reality. Our budgets will not be refilled with state dollars. We've got to raise the money ourselves. And your role in that has got to be, you've got to be at the forefront and you've got to be engaging. We cannot stand before you and talk about 18,000 individuals who are not engaged. We've got to get them financially engaged. So, I'll stop there and entertain any questions that you will have of me. Yes.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Again, my name is Betty Holloway. I'm from the New Jersey chapter. And that email that you just read was wonderful. I hope you will get a chance to share it maybe tonight at the banquet. But I wonder, through the discovery that you've been able to pull together so far now, do you envision a shift in, from at the university level, the alumni relations role in pulling in more alumni to get them engaged? I'm looking at the membership report and, we're always very concerned about that. But I just think that there needs to be a shift somehow. I don't know what that might look like, but there needs to be a shift in terms of reaching out, and especially to our young alumni.
Well, you heard me talk about, I want to take your last piece first. Our young people want to be reached technologically. That's how they engage, okay? I have yet to meet anyone, now I carry two, but have yet to meet anyone that did not have one of these, okay? And these things are getting smarter and cheaper. But if we really think about how we use it less for the phone than we do for getting and disseminating information. And so I have, I thought it was a big deal when I had a Facebook account. But students are not on Facebook anymore. We are. No, we are. Okay. We discovered it. Okay. But you know where students are? They're tweeting. And tweeting says you got to tell your story in 250 characters. That's all you get. And I thought that there was no way I would be able to tweet. But I'm tweeting. because I'm trying to meet the students where they are. The other thing that they do is they do this thing called Instagram. Okay? Who would have thought anyone would kind of get a charge out of seeing pictures? And if you ever seen them, I think they're like this. They're always, I mean, there was a term my mother used to call that, but I won't share that today. But that's what they're doing. I don't mean to say that in any other way other than we've got to up our game. You know, if you send them something through the mail, they're not getting it. If you send them information with a nice glossy brochure, they're not reading it. We like that kind of stuff. They don't. So we've got to up our game in institutional advancement and the way we engage alumni. I encourage, and I think we need to be at the forefront of doing that. And then I encourage stronger relationship between our alumni office and your organization so we come together as a body of one, as of a voice of one. I think we've got some technology challenges at the university where we don't have our databases where they need to be. And if you learned anything from watching the presidential campaign, the president didn't win because somebody gave him millions of dollars. He won because some folk gave him $10 and $15. Now I will tell you, one of the things that I lost sight of is every time I got an email, I'd hit, oh, I gotta give. Well, I must have gotten 3 or 4 emails that week, and I thought, oh my God, I was given so much. I said, whoa, let me check. Hold on here. But that's what they did. They got you in a fever to give. And they taught you or conditioned you that $10 made a difference. So I think we've got to be strategic. I think we've got to develop a marketing plan. I think that I've heard that you hired a marketing company, but if we don't get our act together technologically, we'll never do what we need to do with our those folks that are recent. In that 40 and the 40-40 club, we won't be able to engage them. And really, you look at, I mean, think about how you're engaging now. So, and we've got to constantly be refreshing. If we think we've arrived, then we've already lost the game. Think about it. Think about this for a minute. Remember when you could only bank on Monday and Friday from 8 to 5? And then the banks opened up what? Saturday hours. Boy, we thought that, boy, they sure understand that working people need some time, right? And then they started putting ATMs everywhere, okay? And then all of a sudden, whatever you could do at an ATM or whatever you could do in the bank now is right here. So now you're asking the question, why do I need to go there? Because there's some that let you take a picture of your check and you can deposit your check just that way, right? So you never arrive. And so we've got to build strategies in that say these are the strategies now. So we've got to tie ourselves closer together. We got to get our technology act together, and we have to be afraid to tell folk what we need and ask the question. I mean, when the folks at AT&T came over and I started talking about the fact that I got so many students that I may send home because they had $500 they couldn't believe it. And so she said, here, I'll give you $7,000 today. You think I want $7,000 for AT&T when they've got many more? How many of you are AT&T wireless users? Okay? We support them well. So I said, put about 6 more zeros on that, and then we can, we'll have a conversation. Well, if you don't ask, where are you going to go? So at any rate, I hope I'm answering your question a little bit. I think that organization matters. I think that folks want to give to understand the value proposition. So you need to be very clear about what does it mean to be part of the Alumni Association? What do I get if I'm part of the organization versus sitting outside of the organization? And that value proposition has got to be relevant to that individual. And you got to be out there. I think we got to, I love the activities that you're engaged in, but I think there are many more. I think that there are many, many more. You will see, and I know my development folks have said, don't go out there saying this, so I know you're in the room, Anita, so just go back and say she did what you told her not to do. But, you know, we're going to have some kind of meaningful campaign. We've not had a campaign. We've always thought the state would do that for us. But we've got to be very aggressive and go out there and raise money in a very, very organized and progressive way. Yes.
We located in North Carolina about a year ago. There was talk about the legislator looking at HBCUs and especially in the North Carolina system and maybe closing some or taking some departments and doing away with them or maybe combining them with other non-HBCUs in the same area. There was no indication that may impact NCCU, but can you talk a little bit about that? In fact, maybe it might be impacting NCCU about closing some HBCUs or losing some portion of HBCUs.
There was a lot of noise about that in May, or I think maybe even a little earlier than that, about that being a cost-saving measure. Clearly, I think that was, it really has become noise. But the Board of Governors said to all of the institutions, we need to be better run institutions. Therefore, if you've got academic programs that are where the cost to degree is too high, then you need to start looking and managing that in a different way. If there's too much if there's duplication, you need to eliminate it. And then they also talked about opportunities where, and I'll be honest, where you've got an A&T in a city and you've got UNC Greensboro and they're offering the same type of curriculum. And does that really make sense in terms of a North Carolina investment? So the first piece of that was not public was the Board of Governors piece that said, look at your academic programs and make sure that one, there's no duplication, they're cost efficient, and they are relevant. Okay. So that exercise went on all of our campuses. And then this conversation about HBCUs. And I think that rhetoric didn't really gain any traction, although it was publicized. It really has not gained any traction. I think that NCCU is well positioned, but I think that we've got some work we need to do. We are a vibrant member of the triangle, and we need to constantly be talking about that. So I think we've got some work to do on that front. I do not believe the legislature is positioned to take that dramatic step. I think we all need to watch what goes on in Elizabeth City. Yes?
HBCUs historically meant a hand up for many black students, giving them dignity and responsibility and a chance to be more than they had ever imagined. I'm wondering if there's any thought been given to reaching out now to Hispanics.
Absolutely. If I can broaden that question too, absolutely. We have a growing Hispanic population in North Carolina, and we should and are aggressively, well, let me just say, we have been reaching out to Hispanic students. We need to be much more aggressive in that front, because one of the things that I think that makes our institution unique is just what you said. We inspire and we deliver on those dreams. We can take the rawest of talent and have an ambassador. We can take the rawest of talent and they're in the Supreme, in state Supreme courts. We've got a history of doing that. We're going to be doing that much more aggressively. But let me be honest. To your question about what's happening with HBCUs, let's talk about black and brown kids in North Carolina. If you look at the admissions requirements today for all of UNC, the Board of Governors decided that there would be a minimum standard for all institutions. That minimum standard is a 2.5 and an 800 on the SAT. That's the minimum standard that any student must have to attend any institution in the North Carolina system. Okay? Many of our students don't fit that profile. Okay? So the legislature has said those students that don't fit that profile should seek an alternative to higher education, a four-year baccalaureate program. They should go to community college. That's what they've said, okay? So I can tell you when I talk to you about the impact upon our enrollment that we did not, could not, and the Chancellor only has a 1% exception capability, which amounts to less than about 10 students. So there's no give in that. So we've got to change our admissions game, if you will, from just focusing on that 19-year-old right out of college to focusing on that 19-year-old right out of college that may go to a community college and then come to us. And so how do we embrace that dynamic? And we're very much a work in progress in terms of our ability to do and to engage that. So yes, we need to, I will tell you, and you all know this, that HBCUs are the most diverse campuses in the nation in terms of its faculty and in terms of its student populations. That's fact. And I think we are more in tune to how to take that diverse community and make them successful. 90% of our students are Pell recipients. If you look at any other institutions and pull out their Pell recipient, disaggregate the numbers, pull out their Pell recipients and say, how well are you doing? Because we get a real big hit because our graduation numbers aren't what they need to be. Our graduation rates aren't what they need to be. But if I pull out Carolina's Pell folk and I pull out state's Pell recipient and map that to where we are, we're ahead. So yes, we're going to embrace the Hispanic community as well. Other questions?
Chancellor.
Yes, sir.
I just had one briefly. Could you speak to our positioning when it comes to workforce development and preparing students when they leave us? Because I've always said an employed alumni is a better alumni for the university's future. So in terms of, when you say align programs and services, career services center, in terms of how we're positioning and preparing for industry demands and moving to be in line with them to make sure that's not a problem. When folks graduate, they've got places to go.
Well, I'm really, as you know, that's a work in progress for us. Right? I'm really delighted to say that we don't have the problems in our legal community. There's a lot of unemployed lawyers. We don't have that kind of challenge with the graduates that come out of our law school. I can also, tell you that in our STEM careers, we're doing extraordinarily well. But we need to be vigilant about how we are mapping industry needs to the relevance in our program offerings. You've seen a lot of that happen as we start to really embrace the delivery of STEM education. We need to do a better job in engaging folks in the triangle to ensure that they see us as an engine of economic growth and development. I mean, you heard me talk about my meeting with the governor's economic development chief advisor. That was not by happenstance, because we, in this climate, remember I talked about opportunity versus focusing on challenges. The opportunity exists for us to tell our story. We've got the facility that you are in now, the Bright and BBRI are flagships for us. And if you haven't seen those, you need to put that on your list of places to tour. BBRI, we're doing some amazing research in health disparities and in cancer research there. So it's very much a work in progress. I can tell you that we have a new dean of the School of Business, and he has said that we're going to deliver relevant education for the 21st century. One of the things that we're doing is broadening our reach beyond Fayetteville Street. So we will have program offerings next, is it next semester, Anita? Am I getting ahead of myself? Is it next semester or in January? Okay. That we will have first program offering in the American Tobacco Campus. So we will have a presence downtown. And if you all who are part of the Durham community know that that's been something that industry's been asking for a long time, that we have a presence downtown. So we are in fact doing that as well. But I think that we have to understand that we live in a global marketplace. We can't just focus on what we're doing here on stateside. We need to make sure that we're preparing leaders for the global economy. And so we are busy trying to embrace another dynamic in a big way, our international education program. And starting in the fall, we will have 34 students from China that will be here on our campus taking courses. And so the intent is that we will send students there and students will come back. I've got a core of faculty who've said, you know, we need to be doing work with countries within Africa. So we're working on some initiatives there as well. And Richard will tell you, I've had some conversation with him already to say, how can we get some of those federal dollars to help us engage on this front. But we've got to be, you know, I talked about techno scholars, you know, and if you read Tom Freeman's The World is Flat, he talks about how we have engaged globally because technology has allowed us to do so. And so we need to make sure that our students are prepared to engage. I will tell you on the career front, you know, many institutions have used their career planning and placement areas and taken that product LinkedIn. And there are more and more students getting jobs through LinkedIn than ever before. And I think we need to engage in that way. And let me also say, I sat down with our career planning folks and said, I want a database of all of our alums and where they are employed. Because what I want our students to do is I want them to go to this database and say, you know, I think I want to be, I think I want to be a sports agent. I think I want to have a job in Washington. I think I want to be a public servant and work for the government. I think I want to be a principal. I think I'd like to be a judge. Whatever their aspirations are, they ought to be able to go to this database, find the alum who's there, and pick up the phone or email and say, can I talk to you about what I need to do in order to make this happen? That's where the power is. So you talk about the value proposition. Boy, if we could work together collaboratively and make that one happen, what a wonderful way to give back to your institution. So those are the kinds of things that I'm talking about. I've already had the conversation, you know, and everything comes with a price tag, nothing's free. But clearly, if we and in order for us to effectively do this, you know, we can't have just a database. It's got to be a solid database. It's got to be a database that is up to date with people who are willing to engage. I don't know if I answered, but yes.
Would you speak on the athletic program in terms of, is it a drain on the college or is it helpful to the college? I just want to hear what you might have to say about it, because I know half the 1,000 athletes have been through here, and a lot of them are not members of the Alumni Association, and they went through here free just about, and they don't give back to the school. But that's not what I really mean. I just mean, is the athletic program a drain on the school, or in the future, do you see it remaining as it is today?
Well, you'll find very quickly that I'm pretty candid, and I say what I think, and you know, but I can be educated, all right. But let me tell you what I know today, okay? Remember I told you I got 2,000 pages of stuff, and when I got the athletic report, I asked for a P&L, profit and loss statement on each sport. First time I think anybody had asked for that because they struggled putting it together. But I asked for a P&L on all sports, okay? Not a disaggregate, I want to see it all. And I will share with you very candidly, we subsidize athletics. We subsidize athletics to the tune of $1.3 million. So, is it a drain? It is a cost to the institution. But I also will share with you that most athletic programs are in the red. So are we alone? Absolutely not. Do we need to improve and get better? Yes. But when I met with the coaches, because they were one of the first groups I met with, the first thing they talked to me about was facilities. And I said, let me share with you, you are going to have to raise some money. Okay? I said to the deans, you're going to have to raise 30% of your operating funds. Okay? New concept. Now, they haven't kicked me out of Durham yet, but we've got to say those things out loud. You know, I know we are in dire need of better facilities, but we're in dire need of scholarships. We subsidize a lot of those athletes. So, that having been said, Division I cost, and we haven't made that full transition yet. They're still being heavily subsidized by the institution, and we just need to. I think we have an extraordinary athletic director who I think gets it, and I think we have a great group of coaches. But I will tell you too, you know, I like to win too, and I've said I want more W's than L's. And I came to the MEAC hoping to see the championship game. I talked with the coach about it, and he said, Chancellor, I promise you we'll have a better free throw season than we did at the tournament. So, Coach, I'm going to hold you to it. So I hope I answered that question. Yes.
Welcome, I'm glad to meet you, and I have a concern. I'm down in Myrtle Beach, Coastal Chapter, and for years I've been trying to get more of our legal eagles to be more involved in our Alumni Association. Bob Charles can verify my quest to try to do that. I need help in crafting a message, an effective message to them that they really need to support us, because I remember I'm a class of '68 when there were more of the other folk coming in to our law school. Now many of them are graduating, many of them in Myrtle Beach area and throughout the state of South Carolina. And I just need to know, how can we give the message that will give them a change of mindset that, yeah, I'm going to contribute to the Alumni Association.
I'm going to put that squarely in your campaign. All right? I think that what you're going to see from us, I mean, I talked about the need for us to have a capital campaign. I will tell you, on my ride to Raleigh on the 8th of February, it was an interesting, you know, whenever you guys get a chance, I'll tell you the whole story, but I hope my mother tells me it takes me so long to tell something. She said, just get it out. But let me just digress and tell this story. So I'm on the back of, I'm on the airplane. 2 flights have been canceled. It's 8 o'clock. I know that I'm going to be elected by the Board of Governors. I'm still sitting in Washington, D.C. So they finally put me on a plane. It was the last row of the airplane. And you know, when you get on a plane and it's that late and you've been at the airport for about 5 or 6 hours, you're exhausted. So I just put my head out on the window and kind of dozed off a little bit. And then when I woke up, I saw this woman beside me shuffling all these papers. I kind of looked over and looked at her and thought, well, I think I know her. And so, so I said, do you work on Capitol Hill? And she said, yes. I'm Senator Kay Hagan. And I said, I thought so. And so from that moment to the time that the wheels hit the tarmac, we chatted. And I can tell you, she went through family member after family member who had attended our law school. So I understand what you're saying, okay? And so I said, well, and how much do they have endowed scholarships or what? She said, no, they don't. So we have a real opportunity. At the, and Jackie hosted me at the Tar Heel, help me Jack, what's the name of it?
North Carolina Society, Washington, D.C. Tar Heel Luncheon.
Okay, the Tar Heel Luncheon in D.C., we had all our legislative, North Carolina legislative group there, right? So Mike McIntyre comes to me, okay, close to where you are in Wilmington. He comes to me and he said, starts telling me about his family who've attended our law school. You know, and then when I went to the Board of Governors meeting, I can tell you we had 2 or 3 Board of Governors folks who told me not only did their son attended, they're working in Kinston now, not only did, but how well prepared they were, and how some of the best instructors were in our law school. And I said, do they have down scholarships? We have a real opportunity. And I think that part of what we need to do in terms of our messaging, our campaign, we need to go out and make sure that they remember that their success is because of their our investment in them. And now they need to invest with us. Going back to that Sam Rose email.
Yes, there's one point I think this group has not made. In the East, we've had several candidates to run who were graduates of Central, and we had Central students to go with the non-Central candidates.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the first. Several what?
Several people to run for legislature.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
And the student came from Central and went with the other school. And therefore, we have lesser people now in the state of North Carolina who's from Central and holding legislative positions. So those things, if the students are cognizant of what they're doing to themselves, when they do that, might help.
Well, I think if I understand you correctly, that we need to continue our Eagles support in ways that continue to get back to the institution. Did I hear that right?
You shouldn't hurt the chances of getting your Eagles in position to help the institution.
Okay.
Because when they leave Central and go and campaign with for Erskine Bowl against Eagles, then you're hurting the situation.
I hear you. I hear you loud and clear, but that's the message that you all need to, we talked about the power that you have and taking the opportunity to make those calls and engage. We need legislative sensitivity to our mission today more than ever. And so it's at the State House and it's also at the Board of Governors level. So I told you about the new standards, which really just elevates all of our degrees, doesn't it? So whenever you have those strong standards like that. But I think that there are some unintended consequences, and that happened not with the Republicans who are now in office, okay? That happened in a different administration. So while we think about, I'm not here to give a civic lesson, but I will tell you, we need to support those that support us, wherever they sit on the aisle. And I probably am getting in an area where I need to be quiet. So, and I think the hook is coming. I think I've taken too much time out of your meeting. It was truly my pleasure to be here. I look forward to seeing you later on this evening. Thank you just for the opportunity to come to share my philosophy. We all are part of Eagle Excellence and E Squared, and it is my pleasure to be one of the newest members. You see my pen, okay? to be one of the newest members of this association. And as my note said to you, I look forward to working shoulder to shoulder with you as we continue the vibrant future of our great institution. Thank you so much.